Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 7, technically, in the Fangled Fastback series. Now in the last video, I had shown you two different projects. One was this car, and I had received some new parts for it. I got the windshield, the back glass, the vent windows, that sort of thing, and I also received the cowl, which I did a mock-up test fit of that, and everything seems to be okay with all that stuff. Now what I need to do is continue on with the passenger side as I did with the driver's side. So I had removed the Dynacorn rocker panel from the side structure of this side and then used the factory rocker panel that I salvaged from the red 68 coupe. Now you're all caught up. So I've been struggling a little bit with some back issues, and I'm fighting through that, and hopefully I can continue this week making the rest of this video. But I want to show you something. I had been contacted by Dynacorn. They contacted me through Instagram, and they offered to send me some stuff. So they sent me this little thermos thing, you know, pretty common. Stainless steel, has a little kind of screen thing in it. I guess you could put make some tea or something with it. I don't know. But I appreciate them. They actually sent me 2 of these. And also, if you look in the background here, here is a clock. Now I have it positioned with a hammer holding it in place. And it's a basic, basic clock, but it does have Dynacorn on it and 40th anniversary. So I do appreciate them. So I do appreciate them sending me that stuff, and probably they should be, to be honest, because I don't know anybody who is going to the detail and the extent that I am with how to fit these panels together. So while I do thank them for that, they should be sending me more. They should be sending me parts or some sort of profit sharing from all the videos that I've produced and showing their products and how to make them fit and all that sort of thing. Okay, so let's get past that. What I want to do is continue on again with the passenger side of this project. So I need to take it apart like I did on the driver's side. I will be welding in a piece of 1/8 square tubing, just like I did here, to support the structure before I remove it. And then I'll set it up on some sawhorses and start drilling out the spot welds and that sort of thing so I can get it apart. And then I'll put the original rocker panel back onto the car, making sure it fits in a variety of ways. Now, I've demonstrated this before. There is a process to this. So I recently had somebody on my live stream who was asking me some questions about this process. And I always try to start from the back of the car. The reason for that is you can't change that. Like, you can adjust the door, you can adjust the fender, you can tweak it, you can move it, whatever you want. But this is locked in. That quarter panel really only fits technically one way. Like, it has to fit the rocker panel at the bottom, it has to fit the back of the car, it has to allow enough room between here for the door to fit. And so you really need to anchor that down first in this process. And from there, you can move on to fitting the door, fitting the fender, and making those adjustments. So that's why I'm doing it the way that I am. Now I will have to obviously take all this back apart, drill a bunch of holes for all the plug welds that I'm going to put into it, and move on from there. So let me get started in taking it back apart. So here I am marking where all the spot welds are. I don't normally do this, but I thought it would be beneficial for everybody just to see how many there are in this particular location. So again, I wobble the drill bit as I drill into the spot welds because I want to enlarge the opening, but without drilling through the backside of the other panel. And I'm just trying to keep these rocker panels from being destroyed. It wouldn't really hurt if I drilled all the way through, but I just figured I'd try to keep them in shape, keep them together. Now, of course, I'm using the panel buster tool, which, again, I've demonstrated or shown. It's from Amazon. You can get one of these things. These things are fantastic. Now, I do kind of wish I would have had maybe another kind of panel buster that wasn't so wide, because whenever I try to get into these certain areas, I have to use a screwdriver. And the screwdriver works, but it's just not ideal for this purpose. So I may look and see if I can find, it would be like a flat chisel, but a panel buster that would be only 3/8 of an inch wide, maybe, would probably work pretty well in these type of situations. So I went ahead and just broke loose these spot welds, and once I got these loose at the front section, and you can see the metal moves really easily, I went ahead and moved towards the back area. Now these welds, again, I marked them with the Sharpie just to demonstrate where they're at. And these, again, same situation. Just take the drill, wobble it around, and expand the bottom of the hole, let's say, that you're sort of creating. And once I get all these separated, I do the same, or drilled, I do the same thing with the panel buster and the screwdriver. Now these pop loose pretty easily. I was not surprised. The welds that they use on these areas aren't that strong. And here I'm just doing something for my own benefit. I took some measurements from the back edge of the rocker panel to the front location of the B-pillar, simply because I wanted to have that information in case I ever needed it. I can just kind of keep notes of that. And for your reference, that was 15 inches, if I remember correctly, was what it came out to be, or 14. I take that back. It was 14 and 15/16. That was the measurement I got from the back edge of the rocker to the surface area of the B-pillar. So again, I'm using the screwdriver to separate these, and really it didn't take much effort. That back section just popped loose. Now the front area here, there was a couple spot welds that were still holding on in this the bottom section here, but the other one that holds on is inside of the B-pillar. There is a flange that bends back and has a weld that holds it there, and you can't drill it. So I just used the panel buster to break that loose. And there was also one weld that was like a bit bigger that held on at this location. It was back in the corner of the kick panel area. Once that came loose, it was just a matter of doing a little wiggling and eventually twisting, and the welds came loose and the panel came off. I didn't realize this back corner here was still hanging on. That's where I was twisting that. Now I took the step drill that I always use, and I just upsized the holes. Just, it makes it easier for whenever it goes back together. I have the holes to the size that I prefer. And of course I did take the grinder and just knock off any of the high metal. Pretty simple process here. And once all of that is taken care of, I use the hammer and dolly and flatten these areas out back to the shape that they were in. So just a little bit of work to get these flattened out and looking the way I want them. And I did the same thing with the kick panel area. And once I got these completed, I moved to the back section and did the same thing. Now there's a couple flanges that are inside that are at like a 90-degree angle, so pretty simple to get those. And these just go back and forth with the hammer and dolly just to get the shape that I want, and of course use the sanding disc to grind those off. I know I kind of did this one backwards. Now these holes here were really just half holes. They weren't even complete holes as we would normally consider. They were right on the edge of that B-pillar. Then I used some Rust-Oleum. It's a good product, and I just sprayed the inside of the B-pillar and the A-pillar because Dynacorn doesn't do that. Okay, now that I have the rocker panel separated from the side panel, I want to install, at least temporarily, the original rocker panel that I had previously cleaned up. I'll clamp that in place, and then I will set the side back on, and then test fit the quarter panel and see how everything looks. If I'm satisfied, which I feel like it should not be that big of a deal as far as the rocker panel, because once it's on, there's nowhere for it to go, right? But you can adjust a little here and there with the quarter panel and the side piece. And I will get that welded in then, and then work on getting the rest of the stuff fitted back up. So let's set the rocker panel on and see what it looks like. Brakes over. And as I've noted before, there are notches on the bottom of the rocker panel that line up with the notches that are already there on the Dynacorn piece, just like they did at the factory. So I'm going to line those up as close as I can. There's some variance there. And I'm also going to use the edge of the inner plate here because it's got a curve to it. So I'm going to just kind of line that up and clamp it in. And then I want to set the wheelhouse in place and see how that looks. So this will fit down in the pocket like we've shown before. And of course there will be some variance on these because the ones that are loose may have just a slightly different shape than the ones that are welded together, the two halves that are welded together. So I want to clamp this in, and then I want to set the side of the car up in place. So let's see what I can do here. And that's fitting very nicely in that pocket down there. So let me get the side of the car and we'll have a look at that. My mistake. Whenever I welded that piece of stock on, I didn't have the wheelhouse in place. And now I need to trim it down. So I got like that much extra material and it's hitting the wheelhouse. So I'll cut that off and we'll retest it. All right, let's try again. Alright, as I have discussed before, on the other side, I have the same complaint. And that's with this. Okay, this side piece can't go any lower or change direction or anything. It is bottomed out on the rocker panel, which is matched to the flange of the inner rocker panel. So this is all the same. Even if I had used the Dynacorn rocker panel, it's still the same thing. There's no changing that. Now this wheelhouse, it's sunk down into the pocket as far as it can go. It's down touching on the inside down here. So there's no more rotation this way, and you don't want to bring it up. You feel like if you look at this, if you bring the wheelhouse up, it's going to correct that radius. But it's not, because it affects the fitment of the quarter panel. So just like I did on the other side, I took and cut off part of this material here because this is actually hitting this right now. This is putting pressure on the wheelhouse. And to me, that's just not right. It should not be sitting like that. I cut that piece out of the other side to make room, and I'll probably do the same thing over here. But I will set the quarter panel in place just to get an idea of how it is, lining up with the wheelhouse, the B-pillar, and the back half of the car. So, not surprised. I mean, there's always issues, but this doesn't feel right. It's actually pretty nice. It fits a little better than it did on the other side. So we'll take a look at that real quick. So starting at the back, I have it clamped to the drop-off panel, and that actually looks really good. Very close to where it should be. Up here, this will pull over with almost no effort. So it's just in fact, that clamp just slid loose because I don't even have it super tight. The only thing I know, again, is this will need trimmed. I need to tune the wheelhouse a little bit. You can see inside right there, it follows the radius very, very well. So that's nice. Just separated right there. It'll come together. I just have to put a clamp on it. Fits the rocker panel pretty close. Gap's not bad at the bottom. Fits the B-pillar nice. So I say that's a good thing. Little fine tuning, like I said. I don't know if I'm going to end up taking, like on that one, I drilled off that filler plate, and what I'll have to do is put the inner wheelhouse up in place as well and see how that one interacts. And I showed in the previous video, I separated that because of the poor fitment in that area. Simple enough. Let's take a look at that as well. I think while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and drill off that inner plate that I talked about. Just be proactive with it. So I have refitted both of the wheelhouses. That trimming helped a lot. Got rid of that, let's say, excess material there. And same situation that I ran into on the other side, where the inner wheelhouse is sticking out. This should be at minimal flush with the drop-off panel. So like I did on the other side, I'll have to cut this open and move it over. And that's what I did over here. You really can't tell the difference. You know, once I did that, it allowed this to come over, and then the corner fits the way it should. So one of those anomalies with these pieces, you just have to, if you want it to fit right, you're going to have to do some modification. I also removed that strap piece from inside there. So I was going to put the quarterback on, but I don't know that I want to, because it's not going to matter. I need to get this cut out and moved over so that everything fits right. So here I am cutting the area that I wanted to section. I'm using this Chief 90-degree grinder that I picked up from Harbor Freight. Really, really powerful. But I decided, as I did with the other side, that the little air saw is more efficient. So I cut a groove with the Ziz wheel, or the cutoff wheel, and then I used that to help me pattern the shape that I wanted with the saw. Now, I wanted to test fit the wheelhouse a few times and make sure that I had the radius the way that I wanted it. And as you saw, I tucked the piece of metal underneath the flange because I did not want to cut that off and then re-weld it. So by doing it this way and tucking it underneath, I'm able to see how well the wheelhouse fits. So I did make a little reference mark here just to show where it was, where I felt like it needed to be. I show you right here. And from there, I basically reshaped it by taking that flange that was left over and moving it in and out and trying to make room for that to fit the excess material that was still on the flange as my reference point. So by moving it back and forth, I could eyeball it and see how it fit. Now, I did use the sanding disc to start with, and then I used the air saw to basically take out a little more material, just a little quicker than using the sanding disc. So once I get this cut back and I'm happy with how that's going, I take this the sanding disc again and I just kind of clean up those edges, and that allows for this piece to tuck back up against the remaining part of the drop-off panel. So I take the hammer here just to flatten it out a little, and then I refit the wheelhouse, making sure that the gaps are what I want, and I can use a clamp to clamp it tight and make sure that the corner fits against the drop-off panel, and then again the hammer and dolly, or hammer I should say, just to adjust the way the shape is. So I also had to use a screwdriver underneath to get it up in place to make sure everything was fitting correctly. And then I went ahead and did some tack welds, and I didn't want to bore you with the whole process of the welding, so I sped this up as I continue welding this. I just do little stack tacks, I guess as you can say, and then a few sections there I did weld between those. So once this is all welded, I decided to get out the sanding disc again and just knock it down. Again, this was a little bit taller than normal because I had 30 thousandths wire in there and I didn't feel like swapping it out. So I just welded it with the 30 thousandths and took some time to grind down these welds and get everything smoothed up the way it should be. Now I did have to touch it up a couple times. I found some small areas that I didn't get the welds, so I hit those, hit it with the sanding disc, and now it's ready for another test fit. Okay, I am feeling pretty good about this side. Now, I did have to knock forward the plate that's inside of here, just like I did on the other side, and not very much, just a tiny amount. It's that overlap plate for the end of the inner rocker. So just bumped it forward just a hair to give a little more space, and everything is lining up very nicely. Even back here where it meets the rocker, this is almost dead even now. The only thing I see any discrepancy, and this isn't as evident on the other side, the way this transitions right here. So this has a very, very, well, I don't know, massive radius, let's say. So this dips in ever so slightly, and the rocker panel is of course square. Now what I may do is massage that a little and square that up. I feel like it should be flat all the way through there because the rocker panel's flat. So I'll play with that a little, get that straightened up. Otherwise, it's all fitting like it should now. So in the back I have a pair of vice grips. Here, the overlap for the drop-off panel is very good. Sorry, can't see where I'm looking. The panels up here, now of course I did take this out, and you can see the witness marker where the paint was of how that was fit before. So of course this will weld in and fit exactly like it should. The wheelhouse, again, I adjusted that, and even the flow of the wheelhouses themselves, and this is why I talk about having separate wheelhouses. So back here they're pretty well even, and as you go further up you'll see more of the outer wheelhouse, and you can see it there as well from where the paint was. The challenge is, see if I can get around the other side here. The challenge is if you're using the one-piece wheelhouses, they're welded together and that flange is even. So there's no, I mean, you can see where I'm talking about where the paint witness mark is. So that flange being even, whenever you try to put that in place, you're going to be fighting with it. So that's why I like having separate wheelhouses. But at this point, I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I know there are some variations. If you look at the gap for the overlap of the wheelhouse, there's really, I mean, I could probably adjust this inner one up just a hair, which would help with some of that gap at the top where the witness mark of the paint is. So I may do that. I may bump that up just a little, and that's going to make that line nicer where it meets the transition panel. But it won't completely eliminate that. And other than that little bit of work, I think I'm ready to weld in this passenger side rocker panel. I don't think I can get it to fit any better than that, so I'll get that welded in and then continue on and see what else I can get done. This might be all I get done today or this week, but I'll start welding in that rocker panel. Well, this is not the most exciting thing to talk about, but I'm going to talk about it some because it's worth noting the process. I do clamp the rocker panel into place and I move along adjusting the clamps. So I will try to weld on either side of the vice grips or the clamp and get both holes that are close to it and then move on to the next one. So I kind of skipped over some of the welding process here just because it's not the most exciting thing, and it's just the way it is. You know, we have to do these things to finish the project. I also opened up the door here because I wanted to get some air in because of the fumes. As we know, these are galvanized, so you got to be careful with that. So I finished up welding the front section here, and then I left the bottom section for me to complete on another day because I was simply running out of time. So the puzzle pieces are slowly being attached to the puzzle. I have welded the upper half of the rocker panel. There's still a couple of welds way back there that I need to do, and I still need to weld the bottom side. I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm running out of time, so I just want to make sure you see what's going on. And of course I did weld the back section as you saw previously. So there will be more, let's say, test fitting. I'm going to try to make sure all of these pieces line up before I do any more welding. And there's going to be more involved with that, which will show up in a future video. So, on to other things. There is a description box down below this video. And in that description box are a variety of links. There's links for Patreon. There's links for Amazon. There's links to, I think, my Instagram, a variety of things like that. And if you're interested in helping out and becoming a patron, you can follow that link. Pretty simple to do. I do appreciate everybody that is supporting me with Patreon. You know, these videos take time and they take effort, and I feel like it's beneficial for a lot of people, but it also is beneficial because my patrons who support me make it happen. YouTube doesn't pay me very well for what I do, and I do appreciate them specifically for helping me to continue to make these videos. Now, if you follow any of the links down below, there's an Amazon link that you can click on for anything. So if you want to buy something and you use that link, I get a little percentage back from Amazon. But I also have pages set up with materials and tools and stuff that I use in the shop. So if you're looking for something, look at those pages as well, and maybe you can find something there that'll help you out with your project. Along with that, there is a list of parts for this car. So you can see that list, what the part numbers are from Dynacorn, and if you're interested in that, I may be able to help you with getting connected with a Dynacorn dealer so that you can get some of these parts yourself. Now, the shock towers are deleted on this setup. So the part numbers that I have listed there are for the shock tower delete, and if you're interested, you have to look up the other numbers for the other parts. So just so you know. But take a look at all that stuff and see if it interests you in any way. Otherwise, that'll be the end of this video. So once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. Break's over.